Hello, and welcome back to Resilient Walk. If you found your way here today, perhaps you're carrying something heavy. Not the kind of weight you can set down on a table or tuck away in a closet, but the kind that lives in your chest. The kind that makes even the simplest forward step feel like you're wading through water. Perhaps it's a relationship that ended without the words you needed to say. A job you left or lost before you were ready. A version of yourself you had to leave behind, but never quite said goodbye to. Before we begin, if this story brings you even a moment of peace, I'd be grateful if you'd like the video. And if you'd like to walk alongside others who understand what it means to carry invisible weight, consider subscribing. In the comments, tell me, what's one thing you've never properly said goodbye to? Sometimes, naming it is the first step. Now, settle in. Let's travel to a place that might feel familiar. A small apartment in a city that never quite sleeps. And let's meet someone who's been walking with a weight they didn't even know they were carrying. Her name was Faith, and on the surface, her life looked like it was moving forward. She'd gotten a new job 6 months ago. A fresh start, they called it. She'd moved to a smaller apartment, more affordable, more practical. She'd even started going to the gym, trying to build new routines, new rhythms. From the outside, it looked like progress. But inside, Faith felt stuck. Every morning, she'd wake up with a strange heaviness in her chest, like she'd been holding her breath all night. She'd scroll through her phone, seeing photos of friends moving forward, engagements, promotions, travels, and feel nothing but a dull ache. Not jealousy exactly, just distance. She tried to focus on the present. Her therapist had told her, "Be here now." But the present felt slippery, like trying to hold water in her hands. What Faith didn't realize was that she was carrying a backpack. Not a physical one, though sometimes it felt that way, the weight on her shoulders when she climbed the stairs to her apartment. No, this was an invisible backpack, and it had been filling up for years. Inside it, the relationship that ended over text message. 3 years together, gone in 3 blue bubbles. She'd never gotten to ask why. Never gotten to say what she needed to say. So she'd stuffed those unsaid words into the backpack. They sat there, still waiting to be spoken, growing heavier with time. The job she'd loved, before the company restructured and her position was eliminated. That's what they called it. Eliminated. Like she'd never mattered at all. She'd packed up her desk in 20 minutes, said awkward goodbyes in the parking lot, and drove home in silence. No closure. No ceremony. Just an abrupt ending. Into the backpack it went. Her childhood home, sold after her parents downsized. She'd gotten the news over a phone call. "We thought you should know." She never got to walk through those rooms one last time, never got to say goodbye to the creaky third step or the kitchen where her grandmother taught her to make bread. Into the backpack. Even smaller things. Friendships that faded without a conversation. Hobbies she'd abandoned. The version of herself who used to paint on Sunday mornings, before life got too busy. Dreams she'd quietly let go of, telling herself maybe later, knowing later would never come. All of it, packed away. Unfinished. Unresolved. And Faith kept walking forward, wondering why every step felt so exhausting. She tried everything to feel lighter. Meditation apps. Gratitude journals. She decluttered her apartment, donating bags of clothes, organizing her kitchen drawers. But the heaviness remained. Because you can't Marie Kondo your way out of unresolved grief. One night, after a particularly long day at work, Faith came home and simply couldn't anymore. She set her actual backpack down by the door, and it hit the floor with a thud that seemed to echo through her entire body. She stood there, in her quiet apartment, and for the first time in months, she asked herself a question she'd been avoiding. Why does everything feel so hard? And in the silence that followed, something inside her whispered back, "Because you never let yourself say goodbye." That night, Faith couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, and for the first time, she let herself feel it. All of it. The weight she'd been carrying, pretending it wasn't there. She thought about her ex, the one who ended things over text. She realized she'd never allowed herself to be angry. She'd just accepted it, moved on, or tried to. But moving on without processing meant she dragged that pain into every date since. Every time someone got close, a part of her tensed, waiting for the message that would end it all again. She thought about her old job. How much she'd loved it. How much of her identity had been tied to that work. When it was taken away, She told herself it was just business. But it wasn't. It was personal. It was her creativity, her contribution, her daily purpose, gone. And she'd never let herself mourn it. So now, at this new job, she felt like an imposter, afraid to invest too much of herself in case it happened again. She thought about her childhood home, how she'd laughed it off when her parents told her it sold. It's just a house, she'd said. But it wasn't. It was every Christmas morning, every skinned knee, every time she'd felt safe. And she'd never said goodbye to that safety. So now, nowhere felt like home. And the smaller things, the friendships, the hobbies, the dreams, they all added up. Death by 1,000 unfinished goodbyes. Faith sat up in bed, her heart racing. She felt like she was drowning in her own life. In our modern age, we are taught to optimize everything. Move fast. Pivot quickly. Don't cry over spilled milk. When one door closes, another opens. We have a million platitudes that basically say the same thing. Keep moving. Don't look back. We swipe left on people we don't like. We unfollow without a word. We quit jobs over email. We ghost friends who become inconvenient. We are so good at endings now. Quick, clean, efficient. But we've forgotten how to say goodbye. And when you don't say goodbye, you can't say hello. Not really. Faith grabbed her phone from the nightstand. Her hands were shaking. She opened her notes app and started typing, the words pouring out. I need to say goodbye. I need to actually finish things. I can't keep carrying all of this. She stared at those words, glowing in the darkness. And then, for the first time in years, Faith cried. Really cried. Not pretty, composed tears, but the kind that shake your whole body. The kind that have been waiting for permission. She cried for the relationship, for the job, for the home, for every ending she'd never acknowledged. And in the middle of that storm, something shifted. Because sometimes, the crisis isn't the breaking point. Sometimes, it's the breaking open. The next morning, Faith woke up exhausted but strangely clear. She made coffee and sat by the window, watching the city wake up below. And she thought about something her grandmother used to say, back in that kitchen she missed so much. You can't bake a new cake in a dirty pan. Her grandmother had been talking about literal baking, but Faith understood it differently now. You can't create a new life while you're still clinging to the unfinished business of the old one. She opened her journal, the one she'd bought months ago but barely used, and she wrote at the top of a blank page, "The goodbyes I never said." And then she began. She wrote a letter to her ex. Not to send. This wasn't about him anymore. It was about her. She wrote everything she'd never said. The hurt, the anger, the love that had been real, even if it ended poorly. And at the end, she wrote, "Thank you for what we had. I'm sorry for what we couldn't be. I release you, and I release this pain. Goodbye." She cried as she wrote it. And when she was done, she folded the letter and placed it in an envelope. She didn't mail it. Instead, she performed a small ceremony in her living room. She lit a candle, read the letter out loud to the empty room, and then she burned it safely in her sink, watching the words turn to ash and smoke. It felt ridiculous at first, dramatic, but it also felt sacred. She did the same thing for her old job. She wrote about what it meant to her, the pride she felt, the loss she experienced, and she thanked it for the skills she learned, the confidence she built, the friendship she made. And then she said goodbye. For her childhood home, she couldn't burn a letter. It felt wrong. So instead, she did something different. She called her mom and asked if they could look at old photos together over video chat. They spent an hour laughing and crying, remembering. At the end, Faith said, "Thank you for giving me that home. I'll carry it with me always, but I'm ready to let the building go now." Her mom was quiet for a moment, then said, "I think I needed to hear that too." Over the next few weeks, Faith continued the practice. She reached out to an old friend she'd lost touch with, not to rekindle the friendship, but to acknowledge it. She wrote, "I miss the version of us that used to exist. Thank you for being part of my story. I wish you well." The friend wrote back, grateful, saying she'd felt the same heaviness. She set aside a Sunday morning and painted again. Just once. Not to become a painter, but to say goodbye to the version of herself who used to do that every week. To honor her. To tell her, "You mattered." What you loved mattered. It's okay that we are different now. She even wrote a letter to herself, to the younger Faith who had different dreams. She thanked her for trying, and she told her it was okay to want different things now. With each goodbye, the backpack got lighter. Faith began to understand something profound. Closure isn't something someone else gives you. It's something you create for yourself. We wait for the other person to apologize, for the company to acknowledge our value, for someone to witness our pain and validate it. But that's giving our power away. Closure is a gift we give ourselves. It's saying, this chapter is over. I acknowledge what it meant. I feel what it made me feel. And now, I choose to close the book. In our modern world, we are drowning in open tabs, not just on our browsers, but in our hearts. Unfinished conversations, unresolved feelings, relationships that ended without punctuation, dreams abandoned mid-sentence. And each one takes up space. Each one drains energy. Each one makes it harder to be fully present for what's here now. Faith learned that saying goodbye doesn't mean the thing didn't matter. In fact, it's the opposite. Saying goodbye is how you honor something. It's how you say, this was real. This changed me. And because it mattered, I'm going to give it a proper ending. And here's what Faith discovered that surprised her most. When you finally say goodbye to what's behind you, you create space to say hello to what's in front of you. 3 months later, Faith sat in that same apartment, by that same window. The heaviness in her chest was gone. Not completely, she still had hard days. But it wasn't constant anymore. It wasn't weighing down every moment. She'd started noticing things she'd been too numb to see before. The way the morning light hit her coffee cup. The sound of her neighbor's dog barking happily in the hallway. The genuine laugh that came out of her during a work meeting when someone made a terrible joke. Small things. Present things. At her new job, she'd started to invest again. Cautiously, but authentically. She'd pitched an idea in a meeting last week, and when her boss said, "I love it," she actually believed him. She wasn't waiting for the rug to be pulled out anymore. She'd even started dating again. Casually. And when a guy she'd been seeing for a few weeks said, "I'm not ready for anything serious right now," it stung. But it didn't shatter her. Because she'd already grieved that old relationship. She'd already said goodbye to that old pain. So this new disappointment was just what it was, a disappointment. Not a confirmation of every fear she'd been carrying. One Saturday, Faith did something she hadn't done in years. She took herself to a pottery class. She'd never done pottery before, but something about the idea of working with clay, of creating something with her hands, called to her. The instructor showed them how to center the clay on the wheel, how to apply steady, gentle pressure, how to coax it into form. Faith wasn't very good at first. Her bowl kept collapsing, but she kept trying. At one point, the instructor came over and said, "Remember, the clay has memory. If you force it, it remembers that tension. But if you work with it gently, acknowledging where it's been, it becomes something beautiful." Faith's hands stilled on the wheel. The clay has memory. She thought about the invisible backpack she used to carry. How every unresolved ending had left a mark. How she'd carried that tension into everything new. But she also thought about the work she'd done. The letters, the goodbyes, the honoring and releasing. She'd given herself permission to remember, to feel, and then to let go. And in doing so, she'd created space for something new. By the end of the class, Faith had made a small, imperfect bowl. The rim was a little uneven, but it was hers. And it was complete. She carried it home carefully, wrapped in newspaper. That night, she placed it on her windowsill and put a small candle inside. She lit it and watched the flame flicker, casting soft shadows on the wall. And Faith made herself a promise. From now on, when something ends, she would let herself feel it. She would acknowledge it. She would say goodbye, properly, intentionally, with as much ceremony as it deserved. Because she'd learned that unfinished endings become invisible weight. But honored endings become wisdom. The goodbyes we never say become ghosts that haunt us. But the goodbyes we do say become teachers that free us. And so, Faith learned that the weight she'd been carrying wasn't who she was. It was simply what she hadn't released yet. Perhaps you're carrying a backpack too. Perhaps there are endings in your life that never got their proper goodbye. Relationships that faded without words. Jobs or homes or versions of yourself that you left behind without. Looking back. dreams you abandoned silently, hoping it would hurt less if you didn't acknowledge them. But here's what I've learned, and what Faith learned. Unacknowledged endings don't disappear. They accumulate. They become the fog that makes it hard to see what's right in front of you. They become the weight that makes every forward step exhausting. But you can set them down. Not by pretending they didn't matter. Not by just moving on. But by stopping, turning around, and saying, "This happened. This changed me. And now, I'm ready to let it go." Write the letter, even if you never send it. Have the conversation with yourself, out loud if you need to. Create a small ritual, something that marks the ending as real and honored. Light a candle. Play a song. Take a walk to a place that meant something and say your goodbye there. However you do it intentionally. Because closure isn't passive. It's an active choice. It's you saying, "I'm ready to close this chapter so I can be fully present for the next one." The weight you carry isn't proof that you're broken. It's proof that you loved, that you tried, that things mattered to you. But you don't have to carry it forever. You can honor it, thank it for what it taught you, and then, gently, deliberately, set it down. And when you do, you'll find something extraordinary. The space it occupied becomes room for joy. 4 presents. 4 new beginnings that you can actually show up for, without the ghosts of old endings clouding everything. So I'll ask you again, what's one thing you've never properly said goodbye to? Whatever it is, I hope you'll give yourself permission to say it now, to feel it, to honor it, and to release it. Because you deserve to walk forward without invisible weight pulling you back. You deserve to be here, fully, in your own life. May you find the courage to say the goodbyes you need to say. May you honor what was, so you can embrace what is. And may you walk forward, lighter, freer, and more present than you've been in a long time. Thank you for walking with me today. Be well, and rest easy.